Hi, I'm Michelle from Then We Cross America, and welcome to Boston. Today we're exploring the Freedom Trail, the most popular tourist attraction in Boston. It is a walking tour of colonial and revolutionary history in New England. Join us as we follow all of the signs, medallions, and the brick path on the 2.5-mile walk through history. We will find all of the most important landmarks of the Revolutionary War here in Boston, as well as follow in the footsteps of Revolutionary War heroes such as Sam Adams, Paul Revere, and Benjamin Franklin. We will see where the victims of the Boston Massacre fell, as well as the location where the heroes of the Boston Tea Party triumphed. Stop number 1 is the Boston Commons. They recommend you start your tour at the Visitor Center behind me. Boston Common is the country's first public park. In the years leading up to the Revolutionary War, the colonial militia mustered on the Green, and the British Army encamped here. The Boston Commons green space still hosts public rallies and gatherings, as well as a carousel and an ice skating rink in the winter. Stop number 2 is the Massachusetts State House. Let's go check it out. The work of Paul Revere, the Golden Dome of the Massachusetts State House, is clearly visible atop Beacon Hill. This building is home to the State Senate, the House of Representatives, and the Governor's Office. Inside, murals, statues, and governors' portraits illustrate the state's history. Stop number 3, Park Street Church. Founded in 1809, the Park Street Church was the site of abolitionist William Lloyd Garrison's first anti-slavery speech in 1829. Right next to stop number 3 is stop number 4, the Granary Burial Ground. Here you will find the likes of Paul Revere, Samuel Adams, and Benjamin Franklin's parents, as well as many more Revolutionary War heroes. We're now at stop number 5, King's Chapel, and right next door is stop number 6, King's Chapel Burial Ground. A Boston Anglican congregation first established in 1686 opened this church building of Quincy granite in 1754. The chapel bell that still rings for Sunday services was recast by Paul Revere in 1816, who claimed it was the sweetest bell I ever made. The city-owned burial ground next door was established in 1630, and it includes the grave of 1st Massachusetts colonial governor John Winthrop and the grave of Mary Chilton Winslow, the first female Mayflower passenger to set foot on Plymouth Rock. Site number 7 is the location of the very first public school in America. The first public school in the New World was established in 1635, and the schoolhouse was first built 10 years later. While the building no longer stands, the site is marked by a folk art mosaic on the sidewalk on School Street and by a nearby bronze statue of Benjamin Franklin, a former student of the school. Stop number 8 used to contain the Old Corner Bookstore. It's an important site for both architectural as well as literary history here in Boston. Now, it's a good place to stop for lunch along the tour. The Old Corner Bookstore building is one of Boston's few remaining examples of 18th century domestic architecture. During the mid-19th century, the Tinknor and Fields Publishing House and Bookstore made this a literary hub for American and British writers. Stop number 9 along the Freedom Trail is the Old South Meeting House, one of the largest buildings in colonial Boston, which was a really important location during the Revolutionary War and the lead up to it, because it was a place where everyone could gather and make decisions and talk about issues of the day. The largest building in colonial Boston, Old South Meeting House, is where colonists gathered to challenge British rule in the years leading up to the American Revolution, including protests of the Boston Massacre and the historic meeting of over 5,000 people that led to the Boston Tea Party. Saved from destruction in 1876, today Old South Meeting House is open daily as a museum and a treasured landmark that keeps its revolutionary heritage alive as an active gathering place and a haven for free speech. Spot number 10 along the trail is the Old State House. As the center of Boston's civic life in the 18th century, the Old State House served as a government building where the colonists debated the future of British rule. The Bostonian Society has operated the Old State House since 1882 as a museum with exhibits and programs on Boston's history. The Old State House balcony was the site from which the Declaration of Independence was first read to Bostonians in 1776.
Stop number 11 along the trail is this medallion on the ground, marking the location of the Boston Massacre.
Beneath the Old State House balcony, a cobblestone circle marks the site of the Boston Massacre, where on March 5, 1770, an unruly group of colonists taunted British soldiers by throwing snowballs and rocks. Firing upon the crowd, the British killed 5 colonists, including Crispus Attucks.
Stop number 12 is Faneuil Hall, a marketplace and a museum.
Home to the National Park Service Freedom Trail Visitor Center, the first floor of Faneuil Hall was built as a market and still functions as one today. On the second floor, ceremonies, meetings, lectures, and protests have enlivened and sometimes disrupted the Great Hall for over 250 years. The day we visited, the second floor was closed because of a citizenship ceremony. On the fourth floor is an exhibit of the Ancient and Honorable Artillery Company, the country's oldest chartered military organization.
Stop number 13 along the Freedom Trail is the home of silversmith Paul Revere, famously known for his midnight ride.
Built around 1680, the Paul Revere House was occupied by patriot Paul Revere and his family in the late 18th century. Revere was living here when he made his famous messenger ride into the Massachusetts countryside on April 18, 1775.
The 14th stop along the Freedom Trail is here, the Old North Church, where Paul Revere famously saw the lanterns that told him the message for his midnight ride.
Paul Revere arranged for 2 lanterns to be hung from the Old North Church steeple on April 18, 1775, to signal patriots in Charlestown that British troops were heading to Lexington and Concord by way of the Charles River.
We are now at stop number 15 along the Freedom Trail, Copp's Hill Burying Ground.
Buried at Copp's Hill Burying Ground are Puritan minister Cotton Mather, Edmund Hart, builder of the USS Constitution, Robert Newman, who hung the lanterns in the steeple of the Old North Church, signaling patriots in Charlestown how British troops were moving on Lexington and Concord, and Black activist Prince Hall. Also thought to be buried here are many colonial-era free African Americans.
Stops number 16 and 17 along the Freedom Trail are the Bunker Hill Monument and Museum, commemorating an important key battle during the Revolutionary War.
The Bunker Hill Museum's exhibits and dioramas tell the stories of the Bunker Hill battle and the monument across the street. The Bunker Hill Obelisk is a major commemorative monument memorializing a key battle in the Revolutionary War. You can climb the monument's 294 steps to the top. There's no elevator for a spectacular view. But considering this is 2 miles into the Freedom Trail, there's no shame if you stay on the ground.
We are now at stop number 18 along the historic Freedom Trail, the Charleston Navy Yards.
One of the nation's 6 original Navy yards, the decommissioned Charlestown Navy Yard, is home to 2 historic ships, the USS Cassie and Young and USS Constitution, as well as the USS Constitution Museum and a National Park Service Visitor Center. USS Cassie and Young is a destroyer that served during World War II and the Korean War.
Last stop along the Freedom Trail, the USS Constitution. Let's go take a look.
The USS Constitution is the world's oldest commissioned warship afloat. Undefeated in combat, she earned the title of Old Ironsides in the War of 1812. You can climb aboard the historic vessel berthed in the Charlestown Navy Yards for a self-guided tour, with an active-duty USS Navy sailor on hand for any questions. Across the dock is the USS Constitution Museum, filled with hands-on exhibits and interactive galleries for all ages. Here, visitors can learn how a wooden hull helped the ship earn the nickname Old Ironsides, discover how Old Ironsides has remained undefeated since being launched in 1797, find out how school children contributed pennies to help save Old Ironsides, and see how sailors ate a diet of hardtack and grog and climbed masts 200 feet in the air.
Thanks for joining me along Boston's Freedom Trail. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite stop was. I'll see you guys next week with another video. Bye.